them because you don't know how it's going to turn out. My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning and in the midst of COVID?
Working for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put the community first.
Hello and welcome to the show. Welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Well, hello there, Dr. Vanessa. How you doing?
Hello, Lottie. How are you? I'm so excited for tonight's guest.
Yes, we are talking about autoimmune diseases, which a lot of people have and people don't know they have it. And then people that do have it, you know, how they're dealing with it. So I'm excited that I have a special guest can tell us, you know, about this autoimmune disease. So let's bring her on.
Absolutely. Our special guest tonight is Reverend and filmmaker Tamara R. Jackson. She holds a dual master's degree from Princeton Theological Seminary and Rutgers University, respectively. She made her creative mark as a poet on many stages at venues in the New York City metropolitan area, as a solo performer, and as a member of A Touch of Reality in the late 1990s, opening for The Last Poets. She is an author of various spoken words, CDs, and literary work, including the poetry collection compilation. In 2020, she stepped out on faith. She took a leap out on faith by applying to 5 short project film mentorship programs to learn about the arts of filmmaking. This began her journey to becoming an award-winning filmmaker. Her current film, The Invitation, this year in 2024, stems from a personal journey with her diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2021. It is a documentary that focuses on women living with autoimmune diseases and the choices they have made to thrive in sparkling conversations with audiences and inspiring those living with autoimmune diseases, as well as those supporting loved ones with such diagnosis. Tamara looks forward to building a body of work as a director that invites all who view in room for contemplation, and layers of conversation. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Let's welcome our guest tonight, Ms. Reverend and filmmaker Tamara R. Jackson.
Well, hello.
Oh, well, how are you? Thank you for having me, Simone.
Absolutely.
We're happy you're here so we can, you know, talk about this autoimmune disease, because a lot of people don't understand really what it is. So let's just start off with talking about what is autoimmune diseases.
A very basic understanding of how autoimmune disease works is, you know, our bodies, we have like our army, so to speak, right? So when disease and viruses and stuff comes into play, right? We have a set of cells that are geared to like fight those diseases. What happens, unfortunately, with autoimmune diseases is that those cells get miscues, right? And so they misidentify healthy cells as, you know, as invaders, basically. So it's really when our body begins to attack itself and begin to attack healthy cells, tissue, organs, and such. Because with autoimmune disease, what autoimmune disease is that all of that is affected. It's not just your cells. It's your organs, it's all systems of the body. And that's why it puts you in such a state of disrepair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you start getting any kind of signs, you know, that something may be wrong? I mean, I know sometimes the organs, you know, they just break down from other different things. You know, like if you got high blood pressure, it affects, you know, your matter of fact, it affects all your organs when you have high blood pressure and stuff. So is there any like way that you would know something really is seriously wrong, you know, when you start getting one of these autoimmune diseases?
I'm going to say yes and no, honestly, Lottie, and I say yes because yes, our body is always giving us signals that, hey, I'm not okay. But I think in the hustle and bustle of our day and our lives and, you know, kind of the various hats that we wear, you know, we miss those cues. And so usually when we finally get the SOS, oh, snap, something is wrong, it's something major. It's okay, I can't move. It's okay, I can't get out of bed. It's, oh snap, I'm having such extreme pain, you know? So our body is always giving us signals. It's just us being in a position to be able to read those signals.
Mm-hmm. I just want to piggyback, because we know a lot of times that when people go to the doctors or the emergency room or the provider and they have these certain symptoms, they kind of like dismissed or may not know exactly what it is, or sometimes they're not really sure how to tell the body what's going, to tell the doctor what's going on with their body. How do we, in light of all the disparities that go on in healthcare, particularly Black and Brown, the Black and Brown community, and particularly women, how do we be able to tell and speak to these women that may be having certain symptoms of how they can relate and communicate with their healthcare provider?
Sure. I am a big proponent and advocate in speaking up for yourself. And I know we kind of like how the healthcare system is designed. It's like a hierarchy, right? So the doctor is the professional, but you know what? You're the one living with the ailments, right? It's your body. Even if it's a disease, right? That is maybe common, or the doctors used to seeing, that does not mean that it's generalized how it's affecting me, right? And so I think we have to become more vocal about, hey, no, don't dismiss me. And if you can't answer my question, then give me a referral to someone who can. Also, I would say, as far as the advocacy for oneself, is also knowing that you have choice, right? So yes, that is your doctor, but if your doctor is not listening to you, right? Because in essence, they work for you, right? So if they are not answering your questions, if they're not dismissing, if you're basically not feeling like you're in care, then it is within your right to choose another provider.
Right. I thought that question was important, because given the take of COVID, a lot of people were having symptoms when they didn't really know what was going on, and it was really turned around and dismissed and being told it was something else. So I know it's important to even have been a healthcare provider and working in ER. There's a lot of things that people really don't know that's going on. So what are some of the symptoms that people can have? Okay,
so autoimmune disease is so vast. But I'll talk about my symptoms. Okay, so this is my journey to learning I had rheumatoid arthritis. So what was happening to me is my body was shutting off. And that fatigue is one of the main characteristics of autoimmune disease. And I'm not just talking about sleepy. I'm just talking about literally there is nothing you can do. I don't, I'm not narcoleptic, but I would guess it was something like what they explained narcolepsy to be, where you could just fall asleep on a dime and there's just nothing you can do. Another thing that was happening with me is that my hands were sticking. Like literally, I would have to peel back my hands to open them up in the morning. And that was very painful. And if you know anything about rheumatoid arthritis already, in general, that's exactly what it does. It specifically attacks like limbs, right? That's one of the diseases that attacks your limbs. And so it's going to affect your fingers and your knees and your feet and things of that nature. All right. So those are some of the main things that were things that I noticed within myself. And I was like, well, what is going on? Why can't I move my hands? Also, you lose muscle tone with rheumatoid arthritis. So there was a point where I couldn't even open my door. And I had to go, subsequently, once I was diagnosed and stuff, I wound up going to physical therapy to regain strength in my hands, because I just could not even push down on a door. So that's like unable to open up cans, or jars and stuff like that. Like, even sometimes it is so debilitating for people, and particularly their hands, that they can't even raise a glass of water to their mouth. So can be progressive.
So now cut you off, Tamara, because I want to make sure we get in about your documentary, because of your journey that you was on, you made a documentary, and I understand that you won an award for it and everything, and we want to see a snip of that. We want to see a little snip of that to get an idea of what it was that you put together.
Oh, absolutely.
I have 4 autoimmune diseases. First one I discovered when I was diagnosed when I was 12.
I don't even know that I'm on the road to diagnosis, if I'm going to be honest. I've had several medical issues and emergencies.
Diet had nothing to do with my treatment. Because I even mentioned, I had heard that fermented foods could be helpful to the gut health.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was blessed to work with a great group of women to create the invitation. Yes.
No, that was excellent, because this way, because when you can talk to someone about your ailments and your symptoms and things like that, it means a whole lot, particularly if you don't know what to do yourself. Because just like you were saying earlier, when you go to the doctor and they don't want to really listen, you truly have to be an advocate for yourself, because I remember when my doctor, and I'm telling them about how I was feeling, I was tired, I just could barely go or whatever. And she's looking at me talking about, well, Lottie, if you would lose weight, you would have much more energy than what you have. And I'm like, well, what the hell me being tired got to do with my weight or whatever, when I'm telling you something is wrong with me, that I don't feel the same that I always feel every day and stuff like that. And when I came out of her office, by the time I got to the corner, I could barely walk. So I had to rush myself to the hospital myself. And they found out I had a blood clot. So that's why I say you can't even listen to your doctor sometimes. You really just got to go and take care of yourself and do what you really need to do when you see things are getting out of whack and, and stuff like that, So to be able to come together and can talk to each other like in your documentary and find out information and share, that's excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I mean, before we go to the commercial, did you want to answer Carol's question?
Sure. Certainly different people have the same symptoms, but again, there's so many different variables of how symptoms show up, right? So, and a lot of it has to deal with environment. I mean, things that we can get in definitely deeper into when we come back from commercial break, but environment, diet, stress levels, all of these things exacerbate symptoms. So yes, definitely people have some similar symptoms, but how it shows up and how intense those symptoms are is a host of other variables at play.
Well, we'll talk about that when we come back. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
They say there are no excuses.
They say to just push hard.
They say to just go faster.
But when we're on the field, they don't know what's going on inside us.
How hard is too hard?
When do we get support?
When do we raise our hand and ask for help? We need each other.
Love. You're mine.
Thanks for joining us today, and we're having a conversation with our special guest, Mr. Reverend Tamara Jackson. So, Tamara, before we went to break, I wanted to ask you, when we're having these When people are having these types of symptoms, and like you realized when you were diagnosed and you found out what you had, like, what did you do? Did you change your diet? There's certain things you can't eat, you know. Tell us how do you manage, you know, your pain and stuff?
Sure. Can I just backtrack a little bit? So first I want to let everybody know it takes on average about 3 years or more to be diagnosed. So it's a long road to diagnosis itself. And you're changing doctors most likely in that time frame. And usually the doctors that diagnose autoimmune diseases are either rheumatologists or endocrinologists, right? They are the ones that have that specialized. So I know we spoke about doctors, and I just want to be fair to medical professionals. They're just not trained, right? They don't have that in-depth of training, especially a generalist, right? So your general practitioner and stuff like that, they're not going to know. And that's why I said, like, if they're dismissing you or minimizing what it is that you're going through, then ask them for a referral to a specialist, because that really begins kind of the journey to know, hey, what exactly is going on in my body and what can I do? Now, in terms of me, I already was eating plant-based. I'll say plant-based, you know, during the last 30 years or so. I was between vegetarian and vegan and everything since like my junior year undergrad. And we won't talk about the years it has been since, right? So I was already eating clean. But one of the things that I did for myself is I was fortunate to find a functional doctor that took insurance, because I knew, even for everything that I didn't know about my disease initially, that I didn't want to be chasing symptoms, and I didn't want to just be popping pills or, you know, whatever it was that was going to be my medical regimen. I didn't want it to all be medicalized, right? And so I sought out a functional doctor, and he's the one, even though I was already eating plant-based, he's the one that took me off of like nightshades. And your nightshades are kind of like your eggplants, your tomatoes, peppers, you know, things of that nature. You know, he also is the one who told me gluten-free. Now, for a person, like I said, I wasn't eating meat, but for those who would be in this category that needed to that was eating meat, is wild game meat, right? So we're talking about your buffalo, you know, those types of things, those more hardy types of meat, and it's all wild caught. Even your fish, your salmon, your mackerel and such, all wild caught. You know, all of those things. And yes, chicken, you still can eat chicken, you know, but again, you know, everything has to be wild caught. And, you know, in the times that we are living in, where now we know that they can manufacture food, meat, they've been given the okay to manufacture meat in a lab, you know, with a printer, you know, these things become essential, because we haven't talked about, but let me just insert this. The prevalence of autoimmune disease is astounding. It truly is an epidemic. And that is one of the first things that I heard, you know, and out of like the 1 in 10 of people who are diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, you know, 75% of them are female.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, on top of that, I told you already that it takes an average of at least 3 years to even get a formal diagnosis. Well, men are diagnosed at least a year and a half before women are. So all of these dynamics is, you know, plays into possibly the progression of the disease, you know, when you enter in, right, to know your formal diagnosis, to know what your treatment plan is ultimately going to be. So for me,
I know.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead on.
No, I was gonna say, so for me, I was gardening because, you know, I got diagnosed in the midst of the pandemic. Let me put that, you know, and I need to insert that I'm a therapist. So I never stopped working, and thankful that food was always on the table and there was no lack. However, like the needs of individuals at that time, it increased tremendously. So my stress is like and I was working in public health. So public health always has this astronomical caseloads, right? And then now I have this thing that is going on with my body. And we were fully into the pandemic. I did not get diagnosed to know what was happening with my body until November. So we were well into the pandemic. We were well into the pandemic. And I had been doing testing before we even went down into a lockdown. So part of kind of to my own mental health, right? Not even a physical health. I had started gardening, you know, things of that nature, because hey, I could do that in solitude. So these are some of the things that I did, Lottie. I started gardening. When we opened back up, I have taken classes at farms because fermented foods is really good for autoimmune disease across the board, because we're talking about gut health, you know, probiotics and those prebiotics and stuff like that. So things like sauerkraut and stuff like that. You know, I learned how to do those things for myself, making tinctures and stuff like that. So yeah, just really taking control over what I could control.
So I wanted to add, Tamara, I would, because I know, you know, when you have arthritis and stuff like that, because I have arthritis and stuff, that one of the main things, like you said with the meat, is not to be eating red meat. That red meat really causes the, you know, the pain to be more, you know, serious when you eat all that red meat. You really should just kind of get off the meat, period, if you can, but definitely red meats and stuff like that. And you know, just kind of stick to vegetables and not all this.
You know what they say, the Mediterranean diet. I was going to say the Mediterranean diet.
Right. Yeah. At least minimize it for you, because you can't tell meat eaters don't eat meat. So you got to.
Yeah, that's why I said no. That's why I said no.
Not telling them. No, but what I'm saying is not telling them they can't eat meat. But what I'm saying, look, when them fingers get where you got to separate them and pull them apart and all that kind of stuff, you don't want to eat no meat.
But that's what that's
too serious, particularly if you know that's what's going to make you hurt even more. Okay, I've been eating meat.
That's what you know.
That's what we was raised off of. But let me tell you, when something happens and that pain hit, you don't have no problem kind of distancing yourself, you know,
from what mama and them did.
But sometimes it's for the moment, right? To the pain go away. Sometimes it's for the moment. But I want to ask, you know, we know that there's a numerous over 50, 80, 100 autoimmune
over 100. Yeah.
And the thing is, we know there's not one size fit all. But how does this disease, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed, impact the family life?
Oh, that is a great question. So I'm going to say chronic illness. So autoimmune disease, which is chronic illness, you know, but when we're talking about any chronic illness, know that it's going to impact relationships across the board. That's across familial relationships, that's friendship relationships, that's, you know, whatever relationship, whatever kind of ship you can have, know that it is going to impact it, because some people are going to understand that you just don't have it, and some people are not. Some people are going to be able to walk with you through this journey, and some people are not. It just is what it is. And one of the things that I really encourage individuals who are living with autoimmune disease, there is already grief in, hey, I cannot do what I used to do. There is going to also be grief in the friendships and the relationships that will fall away. But know that you can't fight for your life and fight people at the same time.
Exactly.
And I know that is a bold statement, and I know that is a strong statement, but it is true. If no other time in your life that you chose you, or you had permission to choose you, choose you. Because autoimmune disease, what has not been said, unequivocally, not only can it be debilitating, it can take your life. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It can take your life. And so it is not something to play with. It's not something to, you know, like, so whoever doesn't understand, process it. I'm a big advocate of therapy. Please go to therapy, because there is too much in this journey, you know, with the constant the constant uncertainty, right? It's like a moving target. You're trying to gain your balance, but the target is always moving for you.
The thing about it is, Tamara, is not only whether you have an autoimmune disease or not, is any situation that's stressing you out and people do not want to support you, you need to get rid of them anyway.
Absolutely.
Stress exacerbates.
No, I mean, sometimes it hurts, but sometimes you have to make a decision as to whether you want to continue to be sick, getting sicker, because somebody, is stressing you out and causing your whatever you have that's wrong with you, autoimmune disease or whatever. It gets worse because that stress works on your body.
And Lottie, that includes employment relationships, which I didn't even get into. Maybe we can get into that in the after show, because and I know everybody can't just walk away from a job, but that's real.
Well, look, you'll find a way to pay them bills some kind of way. There's always the Lord. I always say God will make a way for you to do what you have to do. So we want to thank you for coming on for this part of the show and talking to us about the autoimmune diseases. So if you are suffering with one of these diseases, please make sure you talk to your doctor. If the doctor is not giving you the advice you need, like she said, ask for another doctor or search out another doctor, because you really have to do what's needed. So we want to thank her for coming on, and congratulations on your documentary again.
Thank you.
Look, as always, we'll see you next time. So if you want to stay tuned for our after show, we're going into our after show. You can stay on Facebook or YouTube and watch the after show. So, okay. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Would you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Faith Art Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. Keeping it real.
Thank you for staying around for our after show. We was talking about autoimmune diseases today, and our special guest was the Reverend Tamara Jackson. Before we had closed out the first part, Ms. Jackson, you was talking about the employment of if you have a stressful job and you have an autoimmune disease, what should you do? I mean,
well,
I wouldn't stay there until they got on the stretcher.
Well, ideally, we hope people have that choice. You know what I mean? I'm going to be very clear, but at the same time, be very gentle with this, because it is I understand the privilege in being able to move from one job or the next, right? And everybody doesn't have that, right? But what I will say is at the time that I was diagnosed, like I said, we were in the pandemic, and particularly in the lockdown. So, right? And so with my particular job, I could not move out of that position because I had received a grant, right? That, a specialized grant, and it came with very stiff penalties if I left my employment before 2 years. With that said, one of the things that I did, while I was at home, that was a safe haven, to be honest, me being at home, even though it was still stressful. But, I diffused essential oils. Like I said, I got into gardening. So in between clients and such, I was able to go outside and just, be one with nature, things of that nature. I put things around my office where I could immediately spot and be grounded, right? To let me know that right here, right now, I may be feeling stressful, but all is well, things that would brighten my spirit. Because one of the things that we didn't talk about with autoimmune disease is depression and anxiety is prevalent with them. right? One, the body's just doing all this stuff, and so yes, it has even an effect on your mind, your emotions, right? If I'm feeling fatigue, I don't have energy. That means equally, I don't have the brainwidth, right? The bandwidth, to kind of do those ADLs, those, everyday daily living things, right? So let me say that. And then the anxiety that comes into play when, every 90 days or so, you're giving blood work, and usually a lot of it, and depending on the progression of your disease, you're given possibly more frequently than that, so it's so many things along this journey as you are going through treatment that cause angst for you, not to mention PTSD. Don't have somebody in your team that is just uncaring and cold and and just nasty for lack of work, a lack of it causes PTSD. All these things can exist, so all these things can exist. And so it's important to have things that center you. If that's music, if that's your favorite, something of your favorite color, something, you have to have something to hold on to, scripture, or or whatever your belief system is. You have to have something to hold on to. Or as Yatunde, who is one of the participants in the documentary, you'll only have what they are feeding you.
Absolutely.
So do you think? So do you think it's a good? So when you was talking particular about during the pandemic and working from home, before I ask the question, but one thing about the working from home, I thought was kind of good for people. Whether you're sick or well, at least in between time, you can take some naps to rest yourself and stuff like that.
Absolutely. No, I can't nap in the office. But at home, absolutely, like I'm saying, I had no control of it. And even once I started treatment, it still takes a while for that stuff to kick in. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So do you think that at my job, at my job at the time, like, nah, like this client don't show up, you like, I can't do that.
You think that we still should go to therapy? Do you think when we sick like this, do you think it's good to go to therapy?
Absolutely. And I said that earlier. Absolutely. Absolutely. Without any hesitation. It's important. Why? Because you need that neutral person. You need that person for you. I'm not saying, again, because we talked about a little bit about relationship dynamics. I'm not saying people are not going to ride with you, because you will find your community, even if it's not the people that you think is going to be there. You will find your community eventually. However, you need somebody to be able to just speak raw, not have to take care of other people's feelings, right? Like I said, I can't fight for my life and fight you as well, or be tap dancing around your emotions and stuff like that. I can't do that. That just takes a lot of energy that I just may not have and usually don't have, right? So I can't do that. I will not do that.
But sometimes. Sometimes when we're talking about the workspace, sometimes you're going through these feelings and having these symptoms, you don't really know that your job can't understand what's going on. So you can't be productive in the setting that you're in. Okay, sometimes they may think you leaving work to go to the doctor, you're using it as an excuse. So something you can't really talk to them about it and relate to really what's going on, because you really don't know. So I think I'm a big advocate of self-care. In any capacity that anyone's in, just in everyday life, is self-care, is well-care. And and if you don't look at yourself as first as a priority, and then that's when the added therapy needs to come.
When you talk about the job, I feel that when you, and I'm not saying everybody can do this. I thank God I was able to do this. But I think you should always work on building a relationship with your boss. So when something happens, they're more understanding that something is happening to you, or something happened to you in the family, or whatever. And and they'll be more supportive to you, because you don't
know, Lottie.
I was gonna say, I respectfully disagree. Where I say you have your relationship.
Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know, and it depends on what type of job and what kind of relationship you had with that job prior to you coming down with something.
No, that's what I just said. I said, try to build some type of relationship So this way, you know, the person is more understanding.
We're talking about the
Lottie, I would say respectfully, I'll use myself as the mule over here. Okay. Like when I was going through my, like, it was toxic. Let me tell you, I was working in a toxic environment, and most people that I know work in toxic environments. Okay. What I use to my disposal in navigating and what I need from my disease is I went to HR. Why? Because they can't tell them. I use my doctor, I use my FMLA, you know, all of those kind of things for my accommodations and all that kind of stuff that I did through HR. Because no, because and that is one thing that some people refuse to be in a documentary because their places of employment did not know about their diagnosis and knew that there would be ramifications, because people know that you're not doing well and they'll put added pressure on you, or they put more stress on you, trying to get you to leave, or or even get sicker. And that sounds terrible, but that's just the world that we live in, especially when it's about productivity, it's about dollars and numbers, and you cannot minimize people to just numbers, because there's so much that happens in our lives, right? And the people who interfacing with the people, right? Like for instance, a therapist, I'm the tool. So if I'm not all right, I can't even do what it is that you're asking me to do. And so you stressing me out doesn't work to your benefit. It damn sure don't work for my benefit, and stuff like that. And so no, HR is your tool. They can't talk about your business. They can't divulge anything, but they can put the accommodations in place.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, I guess I
You said supervisor. I wouldn't whisper in his ear if I thought he was asleep about what I was going through. Okay.
Well, you know why? No. Well, you know why? I thank God, because I was blessed then. Because I had relationships with my bosses and stuff. So when something happened to me, or something happened, like I never forget when my daughter was a baby then, not a baby. I guess she must have been about 4 years old, and she ended up in the hospital. She had to stay there for a week and stuff. And when I came in and I let them know what was going on, and I was, I was upset. I was sitting at the desk crying. They was like, "Well, why you not at the house?" I said, "Well, I know I can't stay away from my job to be up there." And my boss said, "No, you leave now and you don't come back until she get out of the hospital. That's when you come back. Everything will be all right. We'll run the office and whatever." So, so see, that's what I'm saying, because see, I had that relationship with them, that if I could talk to them, I could come to them or whatever, and that's what I'm saying. And I wasn't I was a great worker, but I don't think I was a great employee, because I would talk back to the boss. You know what I'm saying? That's why I say when people say, "I don't know why they didn't fire you long time ago," or whatever, because they could never get me on my work. I didn't leave early. I was always on time. I didn't take lunch. I edited, I did my job, so you couldn't get me on
well,
that.
But it's a case by case basis.
That's talking back to you.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. You have to know your environment and all of this.
Exactly.
So I had that relationship with my
boss.
Yeah, you got to know your audience.
You can't be in. I guess you can, just like you said, people stay in a toxic. See, I can't stay in no toxic environment like that, where I got to be on pins and needles every day around the boss and what they're gonna do to me. They're gonna fire me. No, I can't. I'm gonna stay home and eat some Franks and beans. And I'm going to sell some
that's easier said than done.
Before I would be in that type of toxic environment.
No, that's easier said than done, and we may laugh about it and talk about it, but sometimes people may need those jobs, and it may not be easy.
Yeah, that's what I
transition to someplace else.
Exactly.
So there's a lot.
Well, that's what I said. You have to do. But I said me. You have to do what you have to do.
Right, we work there
because see, when you stay in that kind of environment, and then the next thing you know, you go out on a stretcher. You don't have a job anyway.
But
going out and you're not going to have a job.
But the climax of things, Lottie, the climax of things that people are trying to make it work, make the best of things, and maybe in the process they're looking for another outlet, right? To transition.
Exactly. That's why they have something that can ground you, because you can't always move. You cannot always move when you want to move. That is being able to move when you want to move. That is a privilege. That is a privilege.
Well, anyway, we're not going to resolve the situation tonight. I guess it boils down to the individual person. Has to do what's good for them, you know, what works for them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's your mind and it's your body, and I guess you know how much your body can take. So I appreciate.
I don't even know if they know how much their body can take, Lottie. What I will say is, I'll go back to something I said during the regular show. Like, ultimately, we have choice, right? And you know, being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease is less than ideal. Having a chronic illness of any type is less than ideal. But, and this is why my documentary is called The Invitation, is because it does invite you to pause and really evaluate what you want. You know, what is healthy and wholesome for you. You know what that looks like, you know, and that's people, places, and things, not just what's going on in your body, because now you're in this whole other fight, and you don't know what's around the corner at any given moment, you know. And so really my energy has to be there. And so, you know, what you can change, and what you can't, but have something, you know, ideally have something to ground you, have something that will take you out of, you know, the toxicity. You know, if on your lunch break, really take your lunch break, you know, get away from the computer or whatever, go out of the office, take a walk or whatever the situation, but really give yourself time to reset. Heck, I've told people, if you have to go to the bathroom to reset, go to the bathroom, put some water on your face and stuff, but it can be these small little things that help you just exhale to go back in, because we can't always move our feet.
So people are I thank you for what you were saying. I thank you for coming today and sharing this with us. And, you know, I hope people will, you know, just think about what they need to do for themselves. And I just want to leave this saying that sometimes we have to step out on faith when something is wrong. We have to learn how to step out on faith and figure it out, you know, before something really seriously happened to you or whatever. So thank you so much for joining us today and talking about this. Quickly before we go, how can we see the full documentary?
So if someone is interested in partnering with me to screen, because it is for the community, you know, please contact me with the information. If someone is interested in contributing to the impact campaign, because there's a whole impact campaign to raise awareness and give tips and stuff, please, you can donate by, you know, the information that is on the screen. And so, right now is in film festivals, so you can't readily see it, but I am in the process of wherever you are, you know, within reason, I will travel so that we can get this word out and have a bigger conversation within our communities.
Oh, wonderful then. Okay then. So you hear it, you can contact her, you can contact us, and we'll get the information to her and she'll bring the documentary to you. That sounds really good. So thank you so much for joining us again. And remember, you can see us every Saturday on Brick Arts Media at 5:30 and Manhattan Neighborhood Network at 2:30. And you can join us every Tuesday here at 8 p.m. So we want to thank you again. Thank you, Karen. And as always, thank you, Dr. Vanessa. As always, we'll see you next time.